welcome to another edition of News Recap here on News Ghana Clock, coming to you from our studio here in Osu. My name is Hegel Fasua. Now, coming up in this edition, government's payroll is set to soon undergo a massive cleansing exercise to get rid of ghost names. Also, renowned Ghanaian poet and scholar Professor Atukwe dies at age 71. And later in sports, Kweku Ansah Duama will join us to tell us about how France beat Croatia to win in the 2018 World Cup final. And on the international scene, we take you to Senegal, where some teachers have been jailed for exams fraud. And so we have details of these, including business and entertainment news, all coming up in this edition. Please stay. Well, thanks for staying. Now to our first story. The Auditor General's Department, in collaboration with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, will in a few days begin an audit of government's payroll. Now, addressing a press conference in Accra, the Auditor General, Mr. Daniel Yao Domilevo, noted the exercise would commence next week from the Central Region.
We are going to focus on payroll because we think the payroll bill is becoming too big. And there's an increased allegations and findings from some of our audits on people using the payroll as a means of enhancing or making their personal economic recovery programs. They put people on the payroll so to get the money and share. We are also very much aware that some of the people on the payroll who should not be on the payroll is due to administrative lapses. But be it as it may, the Financial Administration Regulation requires that the head of any management unit here refers to things like schools, hospitals, etc. They have a duty to ensure that it is only people who are working for them in their entities that are on their payroll. So we are going to start this exercise next week from Central Region. And we would like to call on all to cooperate with us. They should make themselves available for the enumeration and all the documents that we may require, so to be sure that you are actually a government worker, not only because we are.
Now we do other stories where suspended chief accountant of the Electoral Commission has refunded the Commission's internally generated funds which have been in his possession since 2016. Now Kweku Ejelabi, who testified before the Chief Justice's Committee investigating the removal of former EC Commissioners, said the money was handed to him by Assistant Director of the Electoral Service, Daniel Amenyo, for safekeeping. Now we do a rather sad story where veteran politician Joseph Harry Mensah, also known as J.H. Mensah, has died at age 89. He is a founding member of the governing New Patriotic Party and served in 3 different ministerial positions under the John Agyeku Kufuor administration. J.H. Mensah was a former parliamentary leader and held his last top government position in 2005 when he was appointed senior minister by President Kufuor. Renowned Ghanaian poet, scholar, cultural activist and author, Professor Atukwe Okai has died at age 77. He died at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital on Friday following a short illness. Until his death, Professor Atukwe Okai was the General Secretary of the Pan-African Writers Association of Ghana. He was survived by his wife, Beatrice, and 5 daughters. Now may they also rest in perfect peace. Let's do other stories. The final funeral rites of the late former Vice President Pakwesi Bakoyi Emisa Arthur has been announced by his family. He will be laid on state on Thursday, July 26, 2018, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., followed by a burial service which will be held at the Accra International Conference Center in Accra on Friday, July 27, 2018, and a Thanksgiving service on July 29, 2018, at the Calvary Methodist Church in Accra. The interment for Mr. Emisa Arthur will, however, be by special invitation. But let's do other stories. An Accra High Court has granted an injunction against officials of the Ghana Football Association. Now, this then paves way for the Registrar General to be appointed the official liquidator of the local football governing body. Now, the Registrar General, Mrs. Jemima Owari, is to take custody of the GFA assets to prevent officials of the governing body from dissipating it. Moving on. Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kubako, has gone to the Supreme Court to fight the committee that recommended the removal of chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Charlotte Osei, from office. Now, he has accordingly filed a writ invoking the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to declare the committee exceeded its scope when it recommended the removal of Mrs. Osei on grounds of misbehavior and competence. Now, next is business.
Alright, it's now time for us to do some business stories here. My name is Kweku Ediama Answer. We start off with a very first story. Now, Imani Africa, a policy think tank, will be conducting an audit of economic policies in Ghana with the goal of increasing economic freedom and prosperity. Now, the audit is set to take place on the 16th of July 2018 and will be based on Economic Freedom of the World Index. Now, the index provides a comprehensive description of an economy examining 5 economic policy dimensions, which includes the size of the government, legal systems, and prosperity rate. Let's move on and do some other stories here, where some international bodies are mounting pressure on the government to lift the ban on small-scale mining in the country to allow legally registered companies to operate. Now, according to the international organization, which is named PACT, now the ban is causing legally registered small-scale mining companies to lose millions of cedis invested in their operations, as well as millions of job loss. Now, the pact, which has also maintained that the burning of machines and the deployment of military personnel to man mining sites is expensive and unsustainable. Now, let's move on with our stories here, where Head of Finance at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Godfred Bokwin, has called for an overhaul of tax exemption regime in the country. Now, according to him, government does not need to necessarily introduce new taxes to raise more revenue for the country, but can review the tax exemption regime. Currently, companies under the country's free zone enjoy a 10-year tax holiday, something which business activists have criticized, arguing that it undermines the country's revenue mobilization. Let's continue and do a very final story in business here, where the National Labour Commission, NLC, has summoned the management of the quality bus system, the Ministry of Finance, and 2 other ministries in the country over unpaid salaries of the Ayalolo drivers. Now, the Executive Secretary of the NLC, Ofosu Asamoah, noted on a media platform that the various stakeholders will arrive at a decision after the Commission directed the striking drivers to resume work. Now, last year, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development charged the newly inaugurated board to investigate reasons for accrued huge debts by the Ayalolo buses management. That's all we have for you by way of business.
Let's do some stories from the international scene. Nigeria's main opposition, People's Democratic Party, has formed an alliance with dozens of other parties in a bid to defeat President Muhammadu Buhari in next year's election. The coalition, including a faction of the governing party, say they will want to rescue the nation from further decline and have plans to field a single candidate for the next election. Mr. Buhari, whose first term has been blighted by ill health, says he will run in 2019. We take you to Senegal, where a teacher has been given a 5-year jail term and another fined $32,000 for selling exam papers. Several other teachers and dozens of other pupils have also been punished. Their sentences range from 2 months suspended terms to 2 years in jail. Now, quickly standing by with some sports updates.
Oh, thank you, Hegel Fosu. Now, some good news for the fans of France, where in the World Cup, France has won the just-ended FIFA World Cup tournament for the second time in Russia. Now, France, in a pulsating encounter, scored Croatia by 4-2 in a trailing final in Moscow. Now, let's take a look at the highlight of that particular game. Let's continue with our sports stories here. We'll do some local story where Christian Achu has signed a partnership deal with Adidas ahead of the start of the new season. Now, Achu posted on Twitter his readiness for the upcoming campaign and the fact that he will be wearing the new Adidas kit. Now, Achu, who is currently on pre-season training with his club side Newcastle, will be hoping to become a key member of the team. That's how we wrap up sports here. Hegel Fosu stands by with the rest of the news.
Thanks for the sports updates, Kweku. Let's do some entertainment stories now. The Harmonious Choral has been adjudged the best choir in the 2018 World Choir Games in Pretoria, South Africa. The choir won the newly created category with over 90 points out of 100. A total of 300 choirs from 60 other countries participated in this year's event. The World Choir Games is held to unify people and nations through songs. Well, that's all time would allow for this edition of News Recap here on News Ghana Clock. But before we go, a run through the headlines. Government's payroll is set to soon undergo a massive cleansing exercise to get rid of ghost names. Also, renowned Ghanaian poet and scholar Professor Atukwe dies at age 71. And also, we brought you some sports updates where France beat Croatia to win in the 2018 World Cup final. And on the international scene, we took you to Senegal, where some teachers have been jailed for exams fraud. Well, thanks so much for joining us for this edition of the news. The news was produced by AMULENS Production. Well, do want to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more news updates. My name is Hegel Fosu. It's been a pleasure serving you.